Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. The Russians carry out another massive missile and drone strike all over the entire territory of Ukraine. We have lots of videos, and of course, this morning we have this map where we can see the approximate routes of Russian attack. As you can see, once again, the Russians used new tactics. They were attacking not 2 or 3 or 4 towns all over the entire territory of Ukraine or in some different part of Ukraine. The Russians attacked the entire territory of Ukraine. So almost every single part of Ukraine was damaged and attacked by Russia. The Russians attacked the northern part, the central part, the western part. The biggest attack, the biggest number of explosions were recorded exactly in this area, and of course the Russians attacked the southern and the eastern parts of Ukraine as well. As you can see, according to these roads, according to different colors, the Russians once again were using cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, hypersonic missiles, and of course the Russians used hundreds of drones. So during the previous nights we got lots of videos of how Russians were attacking. We have lots of videos with explosions, so let's start. And first let's talk about the northern parts of Ukraine, about the city of Chernigov. Here we can see just this video, and as you can see, the Russians most likely attacked and damaged another probably military or energy facility of Ukraine in this part of the country. Footage of a massive fire in Chernigov after morning strike. In Chernigov, Iran missiles struck an Ukrainian target, causing heavy smoke and fire over the city. Fuel tanks are believed to be on fire. Vinnytsia Oblast authorities also report a strike on an industrial facility. And you know that Chernigov was attacked by Russia not for the first time since the beginning of this month. Almost every single day the Russians were attacking this territory with missiles and drones. Furthermore, the Russian Federation attacked the city of Lvov, and the sources are saying that the western part of Ukraine was under very heavy fire. And here we can see the consequences of attack. The Sparrow Industrial Park in Lvov is burning after morning strikes. It is located in the city's industrial district. It is believed to have been a logistic hub through which NATO supplied military supplies to Ukraine armed forces. Mechanical engineering and metalworking were also involved there. So something big and something very important was destroyed in the city limits of the city of Lvov in its western part. Obviously, this can lead to some problems with logistics and, of course, to problems along the line of combat contact. Furthermore, the Russians attacked the city of Odessa. During the previous night, lots of videos, lots of explosions were recorded. Shooting and explosions in Odessa. Russian army attacks Ukraine armed forces facilities. So once again, we got lots of videos, but when talking about the city of Odessa, we still haven't received anything that can give us additional details of what kind of facilities were attacked by Russia. We don't have the videos of, let's say, some services trying to stabilize the situation, or we don't have photos or videos of objects that were attacked by Russia. Furthermore, the Russians attacked the city of Zaporozhye. As for the city of Zaporozhye, the sources are saying that the Russians were attacking this settlement without drones and without missiles. According to information we have, the Russians were attacking the city of Zaporozhye with FABs, with bombs. The Russians don't need missiles and drones for these purposes because the city of Zaporozhye is located very close to the line of combat contact, and the Russians can use bombs to attack the territory. Lots of explosions were recorded. The Russians managed to deal significant damage. Furthermore, during the previous night, we got additional videos from the settlement of Shostka. This settlement wasn't attacked by Russians during the previous night. This settlement was attacked yesterday, but I believe that it's better and it's worth to watch this video. And here we can see the railway station, the Shostka railway station, and several trains that were located there. And at some moment, the Russians began attacking this territory with Geraint drones. The sources are saying that at least 2 drones were recorded, and the railway service and railway station and the trains were completely damaged and destroyed by Russian attack. And here we can see the consequences of this attack. So we see that the Russians are concentrated completely in destruction of of Ukrainian transport and energy facilities, of course hubs and different logistic routes as well. So Russians, as we can see, are doing everything they can with the purpose to finish the special military operation during the at least late military campaign of 2025, or at least during the early 2026 military campaign. It seems that the Russians are not planning to prolong this war for another summer or another spring. First of all, the Russians are trying to destroy completely Ukrainian infrastructures like energy infrastructure and transport infrastructure. This can force the population of Ukraine to begin massive evacuation from Ukraine itself, and obviously this can lead in the end to complete collapse of communications, different types of communications between military forces and people on the ground and civilians, and this can lead to complete collapse of Ukraine defense. So most likely this is what the Russians are trying to achieve, and as we can see, they're doing everything they can with the purpose to finish this task. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction, where both the Russians and the Ukrainians continue their attacks and counterattacks. The sources are saying that the Russians managed to improve their positions significantly around the settlement by the name of Poltavka. Some sources are saying that there are already very heavy clashes and that the Russians are advancing. This is the first stronghold, the first fortified area that the Russians are tasked to capture. Everything basically depends on this area. If Russians can take this territory under complete control, then most likely they will be able to take without any resistance the Uspenovka fortified area. And when Russians take these two fortified areas under complete control, most likely the Ukrainians will not be able to hold their positions along the line between the cities of Gulyai-Polye and Pokrovskaya. The Ukrainians understand the situation, so that is why during the previous 72 hours, the Ukrainians launched a counter-offensive operation along the river of Volcha with the purpose to create a buffer zone between the river of Volcha and positions of the armed force of the Russian Federation. And some sources are saying that Ukrainians were pretty successful with this counter-attack, but I would like to point to attention to one important detail so nobody is, let's say, noticing. For example, this is the map of this area, of the area where Ukrainians launched their counter-offensive operation by the end of the 4th of October of 2025. As you can see, we have a lot of contested areas. We have contested area to the north of the Novoselovka, between Novoselovka and Alexandergrad. This is a contested area without any proof provided both by Russians and Ukrainians that this territory was captured by anybody. We have contested area to the north of Sosnovka and to the north of Horosha. So this is very important detail, because if we adjust the map according to reports that we got by the morning of the 5th of October of 2025, we see that most of these contested areas were colored in Ukrainian favor. So according to our map, it seems that the Russians didn't control these territories at all as a result, didn't capture these territories at all as a result of their offensive operation. And now we basically adjusted the contested area back in Ukrainian favor. There is just one small area where adjustments were made, and this is the northern part of Novoselovka, this one. Because this is the only area where Ukrainian sources published a video that confirms that the Ukrainians managed to get most likely the most southern part of the settlement. In this video, we can see how 3 Russian soldiers were sent, or how 2 Russian soldiers were sent to check the situation on the entrance of the settlement, but the Russians were ambushed exactly at this point. So based on this video, we came to the conclusion that maybe Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance group managed to get the eastern part of the settlement and to block the logistic. Based on this video, we have adjusted this part, and that's it. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next, because obviously the Ukrainians are tasked not to restore control over the city of Donetsk by this counter-offensive operation. The Ukrainians are trying to pin down the Russian forces and not to allow them to move further in the direction of the settlements by the name of Vishnyovo, Uspenovka and Poltavka. So the Ukrainians are tasked to slow them down. So here we can see the same situation as we used to see in the area of the villages of Andreevka, Klitsovo, Zeleny Gai, Novoshatskaya, Tolstoy. If you remember, when Russians finished the battle for this part of Donetsk region, the Russians redeployed their units in the direction of Zaporozhye, and then Ukrainians launched counteroffensive just with one purpose: to slow down the Russians in the Zaporozhye direction. But the Russians managed to repel every single attack carried out by the Ukrainians in this region, and the Ukrainians were forced to fall back. So now we believe that Ukrainians are doing the same thing. They're trying to counterattack just with one purpose, to slow down the Russians and not to allow Russians to capture these two fortified areas, the Uspenovka fortified area and the Poltavka fortified area. But it seems that Ukrainians will not be able to do this. Now let's move further and let's talk about the situation in the Pokrovsk agglomeration. And today we have the third day in a row when we receive additional updates. According to this update, the Russians improved their positions. So if you remember, on the 2nd of October, we start receiving more and more updates that the Russians began their major offensive operation in the western part of the city of Pokrovsk, in the southeastern part of the city of Pokrovsk. And as a result of those clashes, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly. And this information was confirmed just by pro-Russian resources without any confirmation from neither pro-Ukrainian side or neutral side. By the 4th of October, we got additional updates, and according to them, the Russians captured completely the southeastern part of the city of Pokrovsk, the famous Pokrovsk citadel. And just today, by the morning of the 5th of October of 2025, we got first proofs that can probably confirm that maybe something like this is happening, that the Russians are advancing and the Ukrainians are retreating. So we have this video, very important video. The Russian resources use this video as the main evidence. And here we can see how Russians were bombing multi-storage building in the southeastern part of the city of Pokrovsk, in the Shakhtarsky micro district. The Russians were bombing this building with artillery. And when the Russians made a pause, stopped bombing, three Ukrainian soldiers basically left the building and they began running in the northern part of the city. The first thing that came to my mind, this is not the video when hundreds of Ukrainians are running away from this micro district, but just three soldiers. But pro-Russian resources say that this is like a proof that Ukrainians began abandoning and escaping and leaving their positions in the southeastern part. Now they're using like small groups of 2-3 soldiers because the Ukrainians are afraid of being attacked by Russian FPV drones. So that is why they're using just a small group with the purpose to escape and to quit this territory. So maybe this is a proof. Anyway, let's wait and see. But obviously this proves something. Very difficult to say what exactly, but something can be proved by this video. Furthermore, the pro-Ukraine resources published a video from the settlement of Chunishino from its northern part, and here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation in this area. So we have proofs that the Russians continue offensive along the railways, and we believe that maybe today the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm Russian control over the settlement of Chunishino. Furthermore, several attacks of Ukrainian FPV drones were recorded in the southeastern part in the residential area. This is a Russian soldier that was attacked by Ukrainian drone in this part of the settlement. Based on this video, we have adjusted this small part. So we see that maybe indeed the southeastern part of the city of Pokrovsk collapsed completely. And now the question is when the Russians are going to begin battle for the central part, for the most important part of the city. And as for the western part, the same situation. Several neutral mappers adjusted their maps in this area of the city of Pokrovsk itself, giving us additional clarifications about the situation on the ground. So we see that most likely the western part of the city of Pokrovsk has collapsed as well. Now let's move further and let's talk about the northeastern part of the city of Pokrovsk, about the area of breakthrough. We have adjustments on map as well, and they are very important. The first adjustment is coming from the settlement of Novotoretska. We will not watch this video because we have lots of videos, lots of episodes with violence and casualties, but the video that was published by Ukrainian sources tells us that the Russians entered this part and they were under attack of Ukrainian drones. So based on this video, we have adjusted almost completely the settlement of Novotoretska under control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. So we see that this is something like a turning point, most likely in the battle for the settlement of Shakhova. Ukrainians made lots of attempts to cut these pockets to encircle Russians, but at the end, the Ukrainians were completely exhausted, and now the only thing Ukrainians can do is to fall back. Furthermore, I would like to remind you that several Western centers reported that the Russians captured the road between the settlements of Sofiivka and Drushkovka, And maybe this is probably was a final turning point in the battle for this area. Now Ukrainians can't get a proper support, so that is why the only thing they can do is to retreat. Furthermore, we got a video from the settlement of Volna. The video was published by Ukrainian resources, and here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians with FPV drones in this part of the Dobropolye direction. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map, and this is another breakthrough made by Russians, or this is another proof that Ukrainians, as a result of counteroffensive, didn't restore control over the territory. Anyway, as you can see, we have two huge adjustments in Russian favor, which means that the situation currently is stable, that the Russians are not just in defense, the Russians are trying to improve their positions, and as we can see, the Russians are improving their positions almost every single day. We make small adjustments of the map in Russian favor. Furthermore, several pro-Russian resources reported that Russians managed to dig in deeper in the eastern and the northeastern parts of the settlement of Rodinskaya. So the situation, as we can see, is worsening for Ukrainians, and it seems that we can see a turning point in the battle for the city of Pokrovsk, and from this very moment, every single update most likely is going to be just in Russian favor, and we will color the map only in Russian favor starting from today, at least in this direction. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Liman Sivers direction. The sources are saying that during the previous 12 hours, the Russians improved their positions in the area of Zarychne. The Russians improved their positions on the line between the settlements of Stavki and Zarychne itself. This information was provided by pro-Russian resources. As for now, without any proofs, we're waiting for additional geolocations. But this is another step, another several square kilometers in the direction of the city of Liman. Very important logistic city in this area, and now with drones, with the new type of warfare, if Ukrainians lose control over the city of Liman, most likely Ukrainians will not be able to hold their positions, their main positions, headquarters, ammo depots, warehouses in the territory of Slavyansk, because from the city of Liman, the Russians can establish complete control over the territory, and Ukrainians would be forced to announce a total and complete evacuation of this region. At least they will evacuate civilians or something like this. As for the city of Kupiansk, the Russians reported that they managed to improve their positions and that they managed to cut some Koldron Ukrainians in the area of the railway station. Today, this information, as you can see, was confirmed also by neutral mappers. The situation is in this direction remains tense. Ukrainians are trying to stabilize the situation, but now it seems that Ukrainians are trying to think how to stabilize the situation around the settlements of Kupiansk-Uzlovoy, or how to evacuate personnel from this area without losses, or at least with minimal losses. It seems that the battle for the city of Kupiansk has already been finished. Now the thing that we can see right now is just the way how Ukrainians are trying to minimize losses from their side. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.